How's it going, everybody? This is Rob Novakast back with another video talking about Loki, Season 1, Episode 2. And I gotta say, this episode was actually kind of good. And interesting, to say the least. So without further delay, why don't we go ahead and get started. As per usual, there will be spoilers, so please, if you haven't seen the episode, go check it out. It's a lot of fun. So, the episode starts at a Renaissance fair, which I think is kind of funny, where we have a few of the time cops, as I'm calling them, show up to try to hunt down the evil variant Loki. I don't know if I can call it evil, because to some extent, Loki, so far, when it comes down to, besides, the Loki that we know from, at least, Infinity War, was good, but the rest, other variations have been evil. They try to hunt this variant Loki down, and apparently, they get blindsided. The mysterious Loki, I think, or M Loki, as I'm going to call them, proceeds to use some kind of manipulation ability, which causes the commander of the time cops that went to this Renaissance fair proceed to attack the other cops. And by the way, they're doing this inside the security of a large tent that I'm assuming used for play combat, with the song "I Need a Hero" playing in the background, which I thought was kind of hilarious. The rest of the cops are dead. The commander is knocked unconscious and dragged away into a time portal. And that's it for, from them till the very end. We have a moment where Loki is apparently becoming fluent with some of the rules of the TVA. And to an extent where I guess he's kind of nauseated by it, of that the knowledge that he's received from these people. And to some degree gets called by Morbius to follow them into a case. And to some extent, it seems odd, especially with the fact that in this situation, or at least the situation with M. Loki, he hasn't taken prisoners before, but now all of a sudden he is, which is odd to some degree. Loki tries to use this opportunity to try to convince them, because apparently another branch in the timeline was about to occur. So what they end up doing is Loki literally tries to convince them to give him some reassurance that if they complete the case, they won't... the way he describes it is actually really cool, but tries to manipulate them to kind of keep him alive after everything's done. But Morbius doesn't fall for this. So, to some degree, that doesn't work and they move on. And at this point, they try to figure out where M. Loki could have went. And throughout the episode, they're going back and forth whether or not to trust Loki, especially with his, track record. But it's curious of what some of the things that are said about Loki, especially with, again, he as it's described, apparently the Timekeepers have preordained him to be evil. He's programmed to be nothing less than that, which I think, contrary to disbelief, apparently. Again, with Infinity War, with the right amount of time, we got to see Loki become a better person to a massive degree, and unfortunately ended up killing him. But in the end, he still became a good person. At some point through the episode, they start doing research, and one of the things that that comes up, apparently, during Loki's research, because Mobius kind of forces him to start doing research on some of the other cases of M. Loki popping up, and finds out about the tragic future of Asgard, but comes to a realization that apparently when it comes down to the event of Ragnarok, or at least an apocalyptic event, there's no variations created, because at that point everybody's dead. So to some degree he comes up with the idea is like, what if Loki is hiding in these periods of time where an individual, where it's an apocalyptic event where in a selected area everybody is supposed to die. And in that regard, they test out using, by the way, Pompeii, which I think it's Pompeii. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, it was definitely Pompeii. And they both Loki and Mobius go over, and Mobius is like, okay, we need to... I love this little bit because they're like, we need to make like subtle changes, see if there's any variations. And Loki just goes full out crazy, releasing goats out of this little cart, which I thought was funny. And he's all talking in I can't remember the exact word for the or language they use for Pompeii, but I think it was Greek. But anyway, he starts speaking in the language that anybody in Pompeii would know, and which, now that I think about it, it was actually Latin, I think. So, to a massive degree, he's speaking in Latin, messing with these people, like telling them, hey, you're all going to die, there's no point, we're from the future. And then all of a sudden, right on cue, the volcano erupts, and he's all like, yeah, have your last meal, it's not like it's gonna matter, ha 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 ha. And throughout all the chaos that Loki's creating, Mobius looks at his little device and realizes there's no variations, there's no time difference, that at this point, Loki's theory may actually be correct, that the Loki is hiding in a random point in time where there's an apocalyptic event. So after that regard, they decide to look up cases, or like try to piece together where Loki could possibly be hiding. And sure enough, thanks to a bit of candy that they received from the little child from the beginning, or at least the first episode, during one of the cases of Loki popping up, they realize that Loki is more likely popping up at a convenience store or a large market that was present during 2050 that is destroyed by a hurricane. And actually, if anything, the entire town is completely and utterly destroyed. So no people or no variations would occur. So in that regard, they know where they're going, and they decide to, by the way, one of the, to some degree, some people are kind of on the fence with this, especially with bringing Loki along, but they decide to do it anyways. And to some degree, it seems like everything is on the up and up, that they might actually catch him, or like at first, because at this point they don't, because Loki may not know that they're there, but it turns out, again, they know. And at some point, the kind of hard-ass cop that we've seen in the first episode teams up with, or kind of partners up with Loki, and Mobius goes with the other cops. And turns out that was a bad idea, because apparently the hard-ass cop, or B-15 I think was the name of the cop, was being controlled by Loki this entire time. Or like, I don't know, no, sorry, I need to make a correction. They weren't controlled by Loki, because at one point they see an individual who is apparently looking for azaleas, and they get touched, or the cop gets touched by the random stranger, and that passes the control on to the cop. And we have this back and forth from Loki and Loki discussing, how they, what they want to do, or at least Loki does not give any details of what her plans are, or their plans are. I spoiled it, by the way. I didn't want to, but what their plans are. And they keep going back and forth through hosts, controlling different people to have a conversation with Loki. Loki kind of brings up the idea that he wants to. I guess I honestly don't believe this. I don't agree with this whole thought process. I think there's something more to it, but Loki makes the remark that he wants to overthrow the Time Lords. Or the Timekeeper. They're the fucking time. I'm just going to call it as it is. They're fucking Time Lords, okay? They're not Timekeepers. They're freaking Time Lords. Only they don't have a big blue box to travel through time. But anyways, Doctor Who references aside, we end up having this really cool fight with Loki and this one guy who's being controlled by M Loki. And after the fight is over, all the lights go out, and we get to see the other Loki. And again, I kind of spoiled it, but it's a female version of Loki, which to some degree I kind of saw this coming, because in some regard, because they mentioned it at the very beginning of the episode, that the variant, or M Loki, was going to be a variation of, from what it seemed like, a male version of Loki, which they did not show any female version, so I kind of suspected that they were going to kind of pull a bait and switch. I think I can call it that, a bait and switch, where it was going to be a variation of Loki, but it wasn't going to be the same gender. Because they showed various variations of Loki through, I guess, like, either with different clothing, or, like, different species of himself. Hell, there's, like, this really cool Viking version of Loki that they show near the very end. So, it was really cool. Now, we find out, too, why the M Loki was collecting all of these reset bombs. Because after the power goes out for the entire store, M Loki activates a device, or it places the device on a coordinated section of devices that turn on all of the bombs that they've collected. And we see all these, like, in the dark, we see all of these bombs light up. And there's, like, I want to say, like, just to do a rough count or rough estimate, 30, 40, 50 bombs. And each one is dropped into a small time portal. And at the TVA, everybody starts freaking out when branches in the timeline start popping up left and right. And they don't know what the F to do. We see M Loki proceed to leave. And as Mobius and everybody else is going to catch up, Loki then trails after M Loki. So that's where they leave us for this episode. And I gotta say, this episode in and of itself is actually really good, and makes me curious on what's going to happen next. Who knows? I mean, especially with the possibility of multiple timelines, anything's possible now. And I have a feeling, again, when it comes to this show, I think it's supposed to lead to what we're supposed to see for, the next upcoming movies when it comes down to Doctor Strange and so on. So, anywho, I really enjoyed this. So, I think I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Truly appreciate it. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below, as well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Novakast signing off. Have a good one, and take care. Peace.